excited to finally have my first real electric motorcycle on the Dyno. Hopefully the first of many. So this is going to be the benchmark for everything going forward. Let's see how much power this 4,000 watt motor really puts down to the ground. Let's put it into gear 3, which gives the most power. Woohoo! That's different than an e-bike. I mean, it's rated for 4,000 watts and I'm seeing way more than 4 very consistently there. And that's it. So the speedometer is pretty accurate. It reads like 1 to 2 mile an hour fast at the very top end. So when it said 58 over here, my actual speed over there was about 56. So you are going to go a hair slower than what you think you're going. That was awesome. I kind of expected to see more than 4,000 watts. I was expecting at least 5. I had no idea what to expect on torque. All right, not bad. 5,116 watts. And I can look at the chart in a second, but it seems like it was holding that 4,000 plus watt range really easily, which I think I know why. I'll tell you in a moment. Foot-pounds of torque, 119.9, almost 120 foot-pounds. That's really good. We know electric motors have a lot of torque, especially in this tiny little wheel, but I am pleased with both of those figures. That is more wattage than advertised as far as the peak power. Keep in mind, this is fully charged, so that's gonna drop off a little bit as you get riding, but I think 4,000 watts is easily doable probably throughout most of the battery. If only it would have gotten that one more tenth so I could ride 120 foot-pounds, but 119.9 also might have got it if it wasn't so cold. It was a little bit chilly out. So to the number 1 and only spot it goes for e-motos. I am gonna put anything that's basically above an electric bicycle in this category. So there might be some mopeds, electric motorcycles, anything that's just way too fast to be an e-bike. Let's see how this goes. So before I get out on the main road here, what I was talking about with the power and it sustaining that for a long period of time is they say on their website that this is rated for 70 amps. Now this is a 72 volt battery. It's 2.8 kilowatt hours. But here's the thing, I couldn't leave well enough alone. I opened up, of course, the side plate right here to take a look and see what was inside there. I was assuming that's where they were hiding the motor controller, and I was kind of wondering if there was any extra space in there to store things. Not really any space in there, but I did see what kind of motor controller they're using. It's a far driver, which people speak very highly of and really like, and the controller is not rated for 70 amps. It's actually a 150 amp motor controller. So what that means is that they've tuned it down probably just for reliability. It's probably because that motor controller is available and the price is right, is my guess. I am curious. I'm gonna do some riding videos, of course, with this stock, but I am curious if it's possible to reprogram that far driver to a higher current. Now there is a circuit breaker on this bike near the battery that's 100 amps. So that's a hardware limitation we'd have to deal with. But it might be possible to make this bike accelerate a little faster without any modifications at all. So here's my plan with this. I'm gonna take this to the DMV. You're supposed to be able to register this as a motorcycle. So I'm gonna go try it. So I think there's kind of like 3 types of licenses, registrations, legalities, however you want to look at it. When it comes to two-wheeled vehicles, bicycles, motorcycles, you have electric bicycles, which fall under bicycle class. You can ride it anywhere you can ride a bicycle. 750 watts or less is the legal maximum in most states and federally. There's some weird exceptions maybe out there, but generally speaking, 750 watts, 28 miles an hour is the class 3 limit. That's as fast as you can go. And then if you go up to a moped class, which Eahora has mopeds that look just like this. In California, they can go 30 miles an hour and they can have more power. I think the maximum for a moped is 3,000 watts or about 4 horsepower. And you do have to have some sort of license for a moped in California. You can't just have a standard driver's license. You can either go get a moped-specific endorsement, or if you have a motorcycle license, that covers it. You don't need to do anything extra. And then of course you get to 100% road legal motorcycles, which is what this is, the Night. I think the top speed of this is right around 50 miles an hour. I've had it up to 55, but that was kind of a slight downhill. But you really wouldn't want to go that fast on this, not because I don't feel like it would be unstable or couldn't handle the speed, but because the battery at 2.8 kilowatt hours is going to drain really fast if you're going that speed. So here I'm going up Rough and Ready Highway, which I love riding up and down on bicycles. It's just a nice windy road. We're doing 35 miles an hour. So back country roads like this are perfect for it. And if you need to get up to 45, 50 miles an hour on occasion, it can do it. It's a little bit chilly out today, so it's not optimum for the battery. I'm a little concerned about going all the way to Grass Valley, to the DMV, and back home. So just to be on the safe side, I threw the charger for this in my backpack. Thankfully, all I need to do is find a 110 outlet somewhere if I need to charge it up. It's really smooth. And that hub motor is so quiet. The only thing you hear when riding this is wind noise. That's it. You can't hear the motor at all. So this is really steep right here. I'm just going to give it a little more throttle. We're doing 36 miles an hour, and it's accelerating, but very slowly. So that's kind of max power up a really steep hill. This thing might slow down to, you know, if I had gunned it beforehand, if there wasn't traffic, maybe 40 miles an hour. So don't expect that you're going to get that top end speed going uphill. I think that's important to know. If you're going to use this as a commuter or something, that, you know, 50 miles an hour up a mountain road is not really realistic. Let's see if it'll get up to 40. 37, 38. There's a car in front of me, so I can't really tell. I think it would get there eventually, but the acceleration is not great when you're already going uphill and you're above, say, 35. I did not move the pegs yet. They're still in kind of the lower rearward position. I've seen a couple other people put videos out on these bikes now, and they're scraping the pegs on occasion when they have them in this spot. So I think I probably will move them forward at some point. It's usually just in really tight, low-speed turns that I think that would be a problem. At a higher speed, you'd really have to be leaned over on this thing. I've already had people test ride this that had no experience riding a motorcycle, but they've ridden an e-bike or two, and they were able to hop right on it and get comfortable within a few minutes. I know a lot of motorcycle guys will say that they miss the engine noise, and I gotta be honest, my last motorcycle had a really nice sound. This is just a different kind of experience. The people that are going to be buying these are not typically motorcycle guys. They might be, but it's probably more people that have gotten into e-bikes the last few years and are just ready for something a little bit faster, but they don't want to go the motorcycle route. They don't want to deal with maintenance. They don't want to deal with gas. They don't want to have to learn how to use a clutch if they haven't done that before. You know, get used to a foot brake on the right-hand side. So this is just so the brakes are just up on the hands, front and rear. One thing you will have to get used to, though, is that they are reversed compared to a bicycle. It's standard for a motorcycle to have the clutch on the left, the front brake on the right and your rear brake with your foot. So these are set up, front brake is the right and the left brake lever is for the rear. One thing I'm still getting used to is just the chopper handling. It's just a different seating position than everything else I've ridden or have experience on motorcycles or bicycles. Probably the closest bike we have is the Cheetah, which has a foot forward seating position. So this should have regen. It's a hub motor in the rear wheel, but I'm not really feeling it, so it must be fairly soft in its settings. Nope. The bike shifted into park while I was sitting there. I think somebody else mentioned that it does that. I don't know why it did it. Got a Tesla behind me. I wonder if they have any idea this thing is electric. I think most people would have no idea just by looking at it. I don't know, maybe they would. It's pretty goofy looking. Well, I'm still showing more than half battery. The bars kind of dropped down to about half when I was coming up the hill at times or under power. There we go, now it's showing about half. But considering that's uphill the whole way, I actually could make it back home without having to stop and charge if I wanted to. So that's good. I could use this to commute to the shop and back. Now I'm watching to see if it's gonna shift me into park. I think it had something to do with holding the brakes down, maybe. I don't know, it's staying in third gear now. Green light. There is the DMV. Well, I made it here. With any luck, I will come out with this thing officially road legal. So rarely have I ever gone to the California DMV and made it back out with all of my paperwork done. And I was expecting that this thing being brand new, the VIN number doesn't come up online anywhere as a recognized brand, you know, all that kind of stuff, it being electric. I expected I was gonna have a problem. And I did. So they want a little more paperwork on this thing. The main problem, which seems rather silly, is that we could not find the emission sticker. So yeah, as silly as that seems, the sticker that says it meets the emission standards is the main holdup. So I gotta get in touch with the Eahora and see if this has one, where is it? And if it doesn't have one, we need to get one on it, or else they won't let it on the highway. So that is a bummer that I'm not 100% road legal yet. Basically, it's in their system as pending until I get the extra couple of pieces of paperwork. I could be wrong, but my opinion is it's probably one of those things where if I went to a different DMV office or if I had a different person, there's a chance they might have been like, well, it doesn't have the emission sticker, but it's electric, so they shouldn't need one. And while I was in the DMV, of course, I wasn't recording in there because I knew they'd have a problem with that, or I expected they would. And then at some point they were like, do you have this here? Because we want to look at it. So I had to bring it around the building and you could see it if you were in the waiting area. And I had people coming up to me asking me about it. What is it? Is it all electric? How much is it? This thing really draws a lot of attention. So if you hold the brake and you're stopped for more than like 5 seconds or so, it switches you into park. I don't know that I like that, but now that I know that it does it, I know to just not hold the brake, I guess. So obviously a little disappointing, but what I did get to do today was go on a ride to town, around town a little bit, and back down. And it looks like range-wise,
it's going to be able to do this kind of trip just fine. So that is actually great. I know some people asked on the previous video if I would do a range test. I wish I would have looked at the mileage before I left, because what I could do is just not charge it. So I didn't actually stop and charge the bike in town.
So once I got home, I tried 3 different things to see if I could overcome this registration problem. Or I should say I contacted 3 separate people. I tried more things than that. First, of course, I went and read up on the rules and the laws myself to see, is an emissions label required? And the general consensus I found online and in the law books was that people have run into this problem before. The law is outdated, so technically it is correct that motorcycles from a certain year and newer are supposed to have this emissions label, even though that makes 0 sense for an electric motorcycle because there are no emissions. So the laws are a little out of date. There's a checkbox on a specific form that says it's supposed to have it, and some DMV offices basically look at that form and they say, well, that doesn't actually make sense, and they kind of just gloss over it, skip over it, whatever, and then go ahead and register the motorcycle. I decided to contact Eahora and see, is there an emissions label on the bike somewhere? And we just couldn't find it. Or can I get one? And basically they were confused about, why does it need an emissions label? It's electric. That doesn't make any sense. So in short, it doesn't have one. So next I called my local highway patrol office, because they are the ones who would, 1, pull me over if I was caught riding this thing illegally or not registered correctly, and 2, they do inspections for home-built motorcycles, for kit cars, for kind of the unusual, odd things. So I wanted to see what their take was on it. And the really interesting part about that conversation is that they kind of said, well, this isn't even like a legal problem with having it on the road. He actually said on the phone, the officer I talked to, this is just a registration problem. In other words, they're not going to get mad about it. It just is a matter of, you can't have a plate on it, obviously, if you didn't get the registration done. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they really didn't care if it had an emissions label. They also asked me some questions that I thought were kind of odd, like, well, maybe you don't even have to register it. And I was like, well, it goes 50 miles an hour. And they're like, well, but it's electric and there's different classes of things. So even at the highway patrol office, based on my phone conversation, they were a little confused as to how to classify this. So I asked if they had any recommendations on what to do or what to try, or if I had any workarounds for this. And their main recommendation was to call a DMV office in a bigger city or their headquarters in Sacramento. So that's what I tried next, and the conversation with the office in Sacramento went very much the same way as the conversation with the California Highway Patrol. It doesn't really need an emissions label. It's electric, and they had some other questions about, you know, how the registration, because it's pending as an application actually in the DMV system now, about how it was done, and they were kind of asking some questions. They're like, well, did you take it with you? Did they inspect it? Did they look at it in person? And honestly, they were kind of confused, like, yeah, they should have just done it. The understanding from both of those phone calls was, yes, the law says one thing, but it's out of date in California, and realistically, that shouldn't apply in this case. And here are the next 2 steps I am going to do. Now, I'm going to get this thing registered one way or another. I think I know a kind of loophole, backdoor way per se to get this done no matter what, but I'll only do that if I absolutely have to, because it takes a little more time, maybe a little bit more money, and I want this to be as easy as possible. But basically, here's the 2 suggestions I was given by the Sacramento DMV office. 1, go back to the original DMV and ask to speak to the manager and basically just explain to them, hey, I talked to these other people, these bikes have been registered in California before at other DMV offices. It's electric. The consensus really is the law is out of date and this should not apply. Unfortunately, on paper, it does. And see if you can get them to let it through. And their second recommendation was literally just go to a different DMV office, preferably in a bigger city where they deal with more of these, and they're more likely to just put it through their system. In fact, when I messaged Eahora about this, they actually told me, hey, we have another customer who went to the DMV office in Santa Monica and got it registered just fine. Just go there. Not realizing that that's like 500 miles away from me and not exactly a very convenient location for me to go to. In the meantime, if you're anywhere near Grass Valley, California, and you want to check this thing out in person, I typically have it parked at our store. And if you've got a motorcycle license, we'll even let you take it for a spin. So if you're interested to learn more about these, feel free to reach out to us at Area 13. I think the next thing I got to do with this is go to a big biker event and see what real bikers actually think of this thing. And I know just the time and day to do it. Hit subscribe if you want to see that video.